and the mother asked me, "Can you say your alphabet?" I'm like, "Oh, that's easy because I had that down." So I said it, and the father said, "Oh, very good." And then she was like, "No, it's not good." And then she, and I was so mad, and I told my mom, and she's like, "You know."
Hello everyone, welcome to another video in which we are going to discuss growing up bilingual in the United States. I have my friend Evelyn with us, the one that we talked to last week, and we also have our friend Nawid, who is an Afghan American. And what languages do you speak, Nawid?
I speak Dari in English.
Dari in English.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us more about Dari language, because not many people know about it.
So I believe Dari is a dialect of the Farsi language. So I also say I speak Farsi. Farsi is the main Persian language. It's the language of Iran and also parts of Western Afghanistan, which is where I'm from. My parents come from the province of Herat, which is a Dari-speaking province.
But were you born in Afghanistan or?
No, I was a refugee baby. I was born in Germany.
In Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Do you speak any German or?
Like I know like 6 words, and one of them is like Scheiße, so that's
okay. I see. So you would consider yourself more as an American right now?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
And so which
or
language?
90%, and then skip the other 10%.
Yeah. So which of those languages is you would consider your first language?
Oh, my first language was Dari. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I learned I learned Dari, and I was learning German first, and then but we came over to America when I was only like 2, so I was just starting to learn German, so it didn't stick. So I learned. I grew up in the house. I would speak Dari, and I picked up English very quickly from watching cartoons.
You mean Dari? You picked up Dari?
No,
English?
I picked up English.
English just
English.
by watching cartoons. Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
it,
That's a very nice method of learning. So you didn't have any exposure to English speaking like people or when you were a child, of course.
Let's see. No, I think most of it really was from TV because when the city where I'm from, Fremont, California, it has the largest Afghan population outside of Afghanistan, at least last time I checked. Maybe now it's Hamburg in Germany. But so, who I would hang out with and play with would often be other Afghans when I was a little kid. And so I didn't have that much interaction, but I did have some interaction. But I would say until going to preschool and kindergarten did I have a lot of interaction with English speaking. But I knew how to speak English from reading and watching cartoons. Okay,
so the moment when you got to your to the elementary school, you already spoke English, like you were comfortable. So it's a bit different to. Evelyn, that she actually had to learn it at school.
And she was born in America too, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That like you never know how the story goes, Yeah. Evelyn, maybe you could come closer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but are you all comfortable?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, good. So, you picked up English watching cartoons pretty quickly. Like you don't really remember the process of learning English then?
No, it came very quick. My aunt told me that I was reading like when I was 3 years old or so. Like I would be reading street signs, and that's what I was told. I mean, I can't remember, but yeah that's what I was told. Like I was reading as soon as I could.
So at this point, like, which of the languages is stronger?
Oh, easily English, yeah.
English.
Yeah, my Dari is not very good because the growing up, the rule was in the house you only speak Dari, but we call it Farsi. I'm saying Dari right now because I think that's the way I'm supposed to say it, but we just said Farsi. So I'm gonna say Farsi for the rest of this time.
Yeah.
So we just said we spoke Farsi in the house, and my mom and dad's rule was in the house you speak Farsi. Because their idea was as I go to school, I'm going to learn English anyway. So it's best for me not to forget Farsi.
So your parents had a kind of a strategy about it, like they knew what they were doing, or they at least that they had like theory how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, they were like, the best way is for him to speak Farsi, so he has good Farsi in the house and when talking to family, and that's really important in the culture. Like in our culture, kids are supposed to speak Farsi. No one's supposed to forget their language.
Like in the culture outside of Afghanistan, you mean like
Yeah, Afghans outside of Afghanistan, they really try to keep the language. It's very rare for me to see Afghans who don't speak their native tongue.
That's interesting, because in your case it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I was about to say, because my mom had the opposite approach to it. Like, it's really important to learn English, but I mean, I had no other choice but to speak Spanish because she only spoke Spanish. I don't know if your parents at the time spoke.
My parents still don't really speak good English. No, my father, his English is pretty good, because I think my father knows 5 languages actually. But my mom's English is still not very good. Like, it's enough for her to get by and interact with people, but sometimes people have a lot of trouble understanding what she's saying.
So you also are at this point you have to speak Farsi to communicate with your family, anyways. Like you wouldn't get by just by speaking English to them.
And I as a kid, I had to know English to help my mom out too, because her English wasn't so good. So when teachers at school would communicate, I would have to translate a little bit.
Yeah, so you're saying that still English is your stronger language.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? But do you feel like you're missing something in Farsi? Like you would like to develop some sort of...
Yes. Okay, so when I was
skills?
when I was like 8 or 9, because I can't read or write in my native language. I can only read and write in English, but my mom, she wanted me to be able to read and write. So she sent me to a class. But it wasn't like a class in a school or anything. It was just at someone's house. It was an Indian couple, I think, that were teaching us how to read and write in Arabic. And so, because, if I'm going to read and write in Farsi, I need to be able to read and write in the Arabic alphabet.
So you were not really learning Farsi at that point. They were trying to teach you Farsi through Arabic?
Yeah, trying to teach me like so in Arabic, if I know the alphabet and I know the sounds, then I could I believe put it together and speak.
Just in terms of spelling.
Yeah, and it's also when people write, just like as in English, you write more formally than you speak anyway, right? So my main issue is because I don't know how to read and write, I speak very informally in Dari. And yeah, if without being able to read, I think the things I say in conversation, that's how you're supposed to say it, but it's not. Like, for example, I recently learned that the way how I've been saying women in Dari or Farsi was not the correct way to say women.
How was it?
Yeah.
The way I heard it so much in the house was very derogatory towards women.
Okay.
Because I would hear it from my dad, like, that crazy lady. So I would just refer to all women as crazy ladies. And I only found this out recently. So
that's good.
But like, is there a difference in like what you're saying? So how would you say crazy women in Farsi?
It's a different word, different pronunciation.
Yeah, no, it's a different word. It's a different word. So I was saying the wrong word the whole time because the way I was speaking was just what I learned in the house. And the problem I have right now, because I moved out of my parents' house and I moved away from the Afghan population, is that I've been forgetting my Dari and Farsi completely, because all of how I learned it was conversationally. And I have not had anyone to talk conversationally in person, on the phone, yes, for the past 10 years. No, not 10 years. 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my Dari is not good. And there are learning aids, but most of them are for the Iranian dialect of Farsi,
Mm-hmm.
not for the Afghan one. And for me, my concern isn't so much to be able to speak proper or anything. I just want to be able to speak freely in my own language.
Mm-hmm. So you would say like you lack some vocabulary, for example, like as the case. With
Yeah,
the
like Evelyn was asking me, tell me what all the body parts are, and like so, bini, abru, mu, dan, lobo, gush. But I remember you would point out a couple, and I would struggle. I was like, what is that again? So
Mm-hmm.
it's frustrating. And I think that I had that frustration early on as a child, so I leaned more into English and just trying to.
So in terms of the education about Farsi, you didn't have like a structured course or anything like that.
Oh, I never got back to the course. Yeah, so the course, it was learning Arabic, and then what happened was, the teachers would hit us, and so
not recommendable.
So it was me and my little brother, and I was a good student. I would study. I would like try to learn it. My brother was not as good a student, but he was younger, so I don't blame him. And he would get hit a lot, and I wouldn't get hit because I was like, I'm learning it. Like I knew the alphabet. I was starting to put together words and sentences.
So you didn't get hit that often?
No, I didn't get hit.
At all, because
until the one time I got hit.
So maybe it's a good strategy. I don't know.
What happened was
it kind of worked.
He was learning, right?
What happened was one instructor. They were a mother and father, and the mother asked me, "Can you say your alphabet?" I'm like, "Oh, that's easy because I had that down." So I said it, and the father said, "Oh, very good." And then she was like, "No, it's not good." And then she. And I was so mad, and I told my mom, and she's like, "You don't have to go anymore."
Oh, so actually, it's kind of sad because you wanted to.
Yeah, I did want to
learn. The
learn.
environment was not right.
Yeah.
Did your brother keep going?
No.
Oh.
he was. I think he was happy I got hit because he's like, now I can get out of here.
Does your brother know more Farsi than you, or is it equal, or is it less, or?
I would say right now he knows more because he lives with my parents, and he's also more of a social guy. So I think right now he knows more, but we're around the same level. Like I would say at some points I know more, at some points he knows more. Like when for 3 years I worked with just Afghans, and during that time my Dari and Farsi was really, really good. But now because he still lives there, if you learn it conversationally and you don't have someone to talk to, it's hard. And I guess that's how languages die orally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you just don't have people to talk to.
Yeah,
it's kind of like how I was explaining to you about me moving to go to the university, and also noticing that I was forgetting my language because I was only talking to my mom in the language.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's different because I actually took native speaker classes at the university level, and I was able to interact with the culture. Whereas, like, I don't think that's much available to, or I don't know.
Is this kind of program available to Afghan Americans, or?
There's not really many Persian courses in universities. I did take one. It was like was it a Persian class? It was taught by a woman who was married to a Persian man, an Iranian man, but she was not herself. But it was a class about sexuality and the Middle East, I think. It was a good class.
What was it taught in Persian?
No, it was taught in English, and everything we read was in English, and The truth is, I mean, there's a lot more resources for speaking the Iranian dialect of Farsi because there's more of them and they're more involved in terms of the just integration into American culture, especially around Southern California. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you really wanted to develop your Farsi, you would just have to learn Iranian dialect, like to get deeper.
It would be. I think it would be best for me to learn Iranian dialect anyway. I mean, just like as in when we learn English, we don't just learn how to speak American conversational English. We learn how to speak formal English. I guess England English, right? And we expand our vocabulary that way. So I think in order for me to really learn, I probably would take one of those classes or online courses on terms of the Iranian dialect. But then also, I'm hoping more resources become available in terms of learning Afghan dialect.
Dialect, yes. So, are you actually interested in taking any steps to develop your Afghan dialect? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so I in my neighborhood that I live in right now, I thought I was the only Afghan person there, and then I went to a neighborhood meeting, and an Afghan family showed up, and I was so excited because I just wanted to talk to them because there's even though I don't know Farsi as well as English, there's a comfort in it. There's a warmth in the language or in speaking your native tongue. It makes me feel at home, and I would rather I have more fun speaking it than I do speaking English.
So it's just, you said it's kind of warm language, very welcoming maybe.
Yeah, because maybe I remember my family.
And it feels like family.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were speaking formal Farsi, it would feel like
Yeah,
formal English, like.
I don't think if I was speaking the Iranian dialect, I would feel as warm, but maybe I would. I mean, I like how I like saying the words. I like how it feels. I like hearing them heard back to me. It makes me feel at home, and it makes me feel comfortable in a way that English does not. So, I guess in that way, even though I know it less than English, in some ways it feels like my language. So.
Yeah.
So you have two languages you feel connected to at this point. Or do you speak any other languages?
I speak a little bit of Spanish because I live in such a Mexican neighborhood, but but my Spanish is very bad. I know how to order food very well. I know how to buy things or say where things are.
Okay.
So hello, greetings, thank yous, manners, those kind of things. But my Spanish is pretty bad.
Okay.
She can judge.
It's interesting though, where he was talking about like the warmth, and whether you would feel warmed and like speaking like the Iranian dialect. Because when I talk to my mom, I don't speak to her like in Spanish, like academic Spanish, and because of that same reason, like it's not like I feel warm in like the classroom, even though there is a connection, like you don't feel that warmth. So when I call my mom, I actually switch a lot of my words to the way that she taught them to me. So for instance, like because she's a little elderly, she uses different sometimes terminology as well. Like I know, for instance, the proper way you would say "aya," right? She says "aiga" with the G, and it's just not that commonly used anymore, and I often got corrected in the classes because that was not considered like academic enough, right? But now like again consciously I have to, like when I talk to my mom I want to use aiga or add the s's at the end of some words, where when I'm in an academic setting I have to make sure I don't do that.
But when you're in the class, you're speaking Spaniard Spanish, right?
Well, I don't use vosotros. But I would be like my pronunciation does have a lot to do with it more. I do have to be more careful with my pronunciation. The same with English. I do have to consciously work on my pronunciation so that in the classroom I'm not like feel like an outlier. But when I'm at home, my English is a lot more slang or colloquial to my region. But and the same thing with Spanish, because there's this warmth of like your
associated with it.
Yeah, with your surrounding way of speaking. Yeah, so it's interesting that you talk about like the.
But I have the same thing with my Polish,
Yeah.
you know, because when I speak Polish to people from outside of my family, or I'm from the certain region of Poland as well, where we speak a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even realize that I change it. But some of my friends told me, oh, when you talk to your sister on the phone, like you pronounce things differently, you use weird structures, and I'm like, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it happens in all languages, I think.
Yeah, the warmth part I think has much to do with
You
it.
know, one thing that's funny that she makes fun of me for is when I'm talking to my mom, a lot of times I'm saying like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. Like she just hears if she's hearing me on the phone, like she knows my mom's just yelling at me to like do what I'm supposed to do, and so she just hears me say like mikonom, okay, khoba, mikonom. All those words are saying affirmations or saying I'll do it, and then but when I'm speaking it and I'm saying those things, I don't feel like that's all I said. like, I thought I had a whole conversation.
Yeah, I often would hear him say mekonom, and I was like, what is that?
Mikonom.
Yeah, and I was like, what does that mean? He's like, oh, I'll do it. And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
But you don't realize that you're saying that continuously.
Yeah, no,
Interesting.
maybe because I'm just so used to my mom yelling at me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's also, are you like, is that part of that warmth that you feel? With...
I still feel warmth, yeah. I still feel warm. I'm like, oh yeah, she's yelling at me, nice. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, so it's also very interesting that in your case, maybe learning more Farsi and developing your Farsi is more about like being able to connect with your family.
That's
better,
exactly what it is.
because obviously you've been part of a little bit different kind of world, the English speaking world that is a bit different, and maybe your family, because as you said, like your mom maybe is not that fluent, she's not part of that world to that extent, the same extent you are, and you maybe want to connect, maybe share your experience with your family. I don't know, maybe I'm guessing.
I think part of it is that as an immigrant, you know, there's the immigrants who really stick to their community, and there's the ones that kind of branch out. And I was always branching out, and so, you know, my friends growing up, like I had my Afghan friends through family and stuff, but and like in the neighborhood, but I was also making a lot of friends who were not Afghan. They were either white or Mexican or black or Asian, and so I never. I felt a lot of the times the ones that would learn proper Farsi and speak it all the time, they really wanted to stick within their community and not really branch out. So I didn't want to be like that. And so my only desire for speaking Farsi was just to speak to my family. And like the friends I had that were Afghan, they all spoke English anyway. And we would speak English to each other. We sometimes made jokes in Farsi, because you know when you have English and that's your dominant language, but you still know Farsi, it's fun to say things in your native language with other people. It's that warmth and that comfort. And so when I went to college, one of my best friends, he was living with three white men, three white guys. I don't know how to say that part, but they were all white, and he would teach them some phrases. I forgot, and then so one day I was over at their house, and one of the guys was just like, I was leaving, and he's like, Shabahay. Like, Shabahay, what is that? What's Shabahay?
Yeah.
Shabahay. Like, I'm like, what is he talking about? And what he was trying to say was No, now I'm messing it up. Shab. when you mess it up, it's hard. Shab khair. I'm losing my language. Shab khair. Shab khair. This is embarrassing. Shab khush. I always say shab khush. Shab khush. So let's just go with shab khush. Which means good night. Shab bkhair. Shab bkhair. Yeah, there we go. Ugh. Anyway, but he was just saying shabahe, and we would just teach him these phrases because it would be funny to just another one we love is khalas, which means done. Khalas, but that's hard to say because you say it with the throat. Khalas.
You try it.
Khalas.
Yeah, see?
It's not so difficult.
It's difficult. She didn't say it right. It's khalas.
Khalas. Is he saying that correct?
He's getting it pretty close.
I think
you speak you speak a lot of languages.
So it all comes from the throat. Like I know my throat's showing up in this camera. You can see it. Khalas, like right here. So, if someone got too drunk and they were lying on the floor, we're like, oh, he's khalas.
Oh.
He's done.
I didn't think about that context.
Well, that was how we play around with the language with other people. Like, that's how we would just put it everywhere. And so it became, and at this time I'm in college, so I'm away from my family for the first time. So, and it was kind of the way that we would connect to our language. We would introduce it. We would just introduce phrases to people, and then they would kind of use them, and it was it was nice. It made me feel good. It made me feel more at home.
I was in I don't know. I don't know if I asked you or before, but did like learning or knowing Farsi, did that ever affect like your academic learning in English?
I want to say no, but no, I don't like it. Never affected my grades, like or anything like that. But in terms of being inside the classroom, because I told you I learned from reading. Because if I'm learning from watching cartoons, I'm only learning children terms, right? I'm not learning advanced words. So when I was reading, I would read books, and I would say words out loud. But my pronunciations would be all wrong because I had never heard them normally. And so when I would say like first, second, third grade, sometimes I would get laughed at a little bit, or I would not understand why certain noises were made and stuff. But it wasn't a big deal.
But this is like learning how to read, right?
Yeah, but when you're reading out loud, like in the classroom, like when the teacher says, okay, can you read this paragraph? And then I read that paragraph.
Yeah.
And we all went through that, I guess.
Yeah, I think we all did that. That's what I'm saying. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, especially with English, it was just like so hard to read it if you don't know the word.
One term I remember reading, and this is in third grade, it was assault.
Assault in third grade. Oh my god!
Well, you know what? I don't know what it was, but I had the word assault. I don't think it was taught. It was just in a book I read, but it has the word ass in it, so I was like,
oh yeah,
ass-alt.
Ass-alt. So, but you don't think that like knowing Farsi influenced maybe the way you pronounce things? It just was just your pronunciation was just like every other kid.
Partially, but yeah, I don't think I ever had a accent. Yeah, I don't think I ever had an accent.
Yeah. So another question I want to ask you: is there a lot of content available on the internet in Afghan Farsi? That you could like watch or read or whatever to kind of boost your language.
One thing that I always look up on YouTube is Afghan RAP videos.
Oh. I didn't realize they existed.
Because to me, rapping is always an interesting way of like understanding a language, because it's always a mix of how people colloquially speak, and also how them also probably using new words because they need to rhyme them, right? So that's one of the main things I like watching on. Every once in a while I check that out, but also no, there is a lot of content. So there are Afghan channels, and they get broadcast from Afghanistan, from Los Angeles, from Germany, to around the world. They there's these cable boxes. There's a couple types: GL Wiz, Jadu. These boxes that they sell in like a lot of the Afghan stores, or even like I bet you even Pakistani stores and Iranian stores have these. It costs like $80 or whatever. You hook them up to your TV and it streams all these channels. And so there is a news channel, there's music channels, there's like singing competitions. There's comedy shows. I don't know if you know the show The Office.
Yeah.
There was an Afghan version of The Office.
Oh.
I know that one of the actresses got death threats for being in it because.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean that's so.
That's not so.
That's not so funny. But I always wanted to see the show. There's trailers on YouTube, but I don't think I've seen the full episodes on YouTube. But one of the channels actually has really good content. I'm trying to remember the name.
Okay.
But
because I'm a very strong advocate for input as one of the methods of learning languages. You know.
Afghans love watching TV, so we have a lot of TV content.
Have a lot of TV content.
A lot of TV content.
But it's not written. Like you don't have subtitles or things.
Oh, no subtitles in English. But we're talking about
subtitles in Afghan, in Farsi.
I don't know. Sometimes I know this is not subtitles, but sometimes those channels they'll like play Batman, and then they'll dub it over in
Oh, they do dubbing.
They do dubbing in Farsi. That was an Iranian channel, so I was watching Batman, and like he's like it's khalas, you know. So
that's kind of cool.
And then a lot of the stuff is also dubbings of soap operas. So they dub over Mexican soap operas. They dub over Indian soap operas. And lately the one that we've been really watching is the Turkish soap operas.
Yeah, it's same in Poland. Like they're so popular.
Yeah.
Like Mexican telenovelas.
Oh, you guys watch Mexican telenovelas?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
We grew up like that's why we everybody knows the word like que pasa. Like, whether you're learning Spanish or not, you're gonna know that word.
Que pasa?
Because they always like que pasa.
Que pasó?
Que pasa?
Oh,
¿Qué tal?
Yeah, or those telenovelas, Turkish ones.
Yeah,
So you're telling me the average Polish person probably knows more Spanish than I do?
Maybe. Who knows? Like, we always had these English TV shows and a lot of Mexican telenovelas. So we knew about cultures and.
I wonder if it's because they're very dramatic and they help learning the language. It's always no.
The Indian ones are very dramatic too. Like they do these camera cuts where it like zooms in, like every second. So if it's like one sentence and then 3 zoom-ins and then it goes on for like 2 more sentences and then like 2 more zoom-ins. So without knowing any words, this person messed up. This person's cheating on their husband.
Okay.
This person killed their mom. I don't know.
Yeah, in Poland, Indian telenovelas or shows are not that popular. I have never seen, but Turkish, like the Turkish are gaining telenovelas shows. They gaining popularity.
And the Turkish ones,
my grandparents are watching.
They look high quality. Like they're really. The Turkish ones sometimes look like American TV shows. They look like they put a lot of money in them, and there's car chases.
Are there any like Afghan TV shows, that original ones that?
I believe there are now. One thing I didn't mention, I guess that is interest is there is like an Afghan comedian who is there is an famous Afghan comedian who is getting roles in TV shows, American TV shows and stuff. There's a famous YouTube channel, a very controversial one. He went to my high school. There's Afghan people starting to kind of break into English media. As far as original content, the reason I bring that up is one of the people that one of the things I remember watching when I was young is on YouTube. There's some Afghan comedians on there. They started on YouTube making skits and stuff. Like the one that's really famous right now, or not really famous, but he's in Hollywood and he's Afghan. His first video on the internet, if you Google Afghan wedding, that's the first thing, and it's just jokes about how Afghan weddings go and how like our dances.
Is it in English or?
It's in English. It's in English. But and then there's other videos that I watched from people in my city that were like the same kind of things. Like this is how Afghan dinner meetings or whatever go, but they would speak in Farsi, or at least partially. Like they'd mix it. So they would joke about, we're very aggressive. Like when we go out to dinner, like who pays the check? It's polite for you to pay the check. So they would show themselves getting in fights. Like, no, I'm gonna pay the check, and then they with the knives and stuff. So.
Recommended.
Yeah, the Afghan wedding video, I guess, will give
nice
you
to learn about Afghan culture.
Yeah. With knives.
Well, yeah, they would threaten to stab each other because they're like, no, I'm gonna pay the bill to be polite.
Yeah. I've heard about like
the knives.
this kind of politeness,
Yeah, aggressive politeness.
And it's also kind of present in the language as well, like especially I know about Iranian.
They run
language
it.
that they always are so polite that they will be describing things that they're gonna do to you.
The Iranian
to be polite.
The Iranian dialect is the more formal and polite. It almost sounds like, when I hear it, I feel like it's almost like French, like classical kind of French. That's how it sounds to my ears, like very polite and formal. Not that our dialect is not also polite, but that's how I always hear it. That's the main difference. And so when I'm speaking to someone in Farsi who's Iranian, I always feel a little ashamed because my dialect isn't like theirs.
Do you think that, like, if you learned the language, like Iranian, let's say you learned the Iranian dialect, do you think that you would feel more proud in speaking?
No, I'm comfortable with, but it's just when speaking to them, it's also a racism issue because Iranians, a lot of them look down on the Afghan population. So even though I don't feel like I'm inferior, I feel the power dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, same. Like I'm not an English native speaker, but when I'm speaking to someone who is a native speaker, I feel I know I shouldn't or whatever, but it's like natural reaction, like. I'm not a native speaker. I speak with an accent or whatever. Yeah. But I guess that's the thing. That's another topic.
Yeah.
How to deal with it, or it's just a natural phenomena. Languages are associated with power. Different languages with different amount of power they have. But to kind of wrap this conversation up, like how would you summarize your experience of growing up bilingual? Like, was it something positive?
It was very positive. I really like that I have this part of this I don't know, it feels like a gift almost, like, because I speak probably a little bit every day now because I don't have anyone to speak to other than phone calls with family, but whenever I go visit, it makes me feel very good. And whenever I do see someone I could speak to, like, it's always just a positive experience. And I really, really enjoy... Since English was my main language, this just feels like a treat that, like, You know, it's like a treat almost. Like it's fun. It makes me feel good. I guess I could think of it as how come English isn't like that for me, but I don't know. I don't think of it like that. I just feel like, you know, speaking in Farsi is just, you know, makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm. And how does it make you feel about learning
Other
more
languages.
languages or other languages?
I've always been very bad about learning. I mean, if I was good at learning languages, I would have learned my own language a little bit better. So, you know, it's interesting. I think I mentioned my dad speaks 5 languages, and I haven't really been able to nail my 2 down. And so, I've taken a lot of Spanish courses, but I never. To be fair, when I took them, I was not a good student. But maybe now I'd be better. But I have a hard time learning languages because.
Yeah, we have to have that conversation. I have to tell you what you need to do.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you have the will to learn. Maybe you just don't have the tools, but I will give you the tools later. I'll tell you what to do. Yeah, that's great. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. We've learned so much about Afghan culture and language, and that's great. So guys, if you have any experience you would like to share about growing up bilingual, or what your heritage languages mean to you, we would like to hear that in the comments below. And that would be all for today. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.
I like how we all waved.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when the next video is out.
This is like.
These ones are like made in Japan or something.
Beats me.
Mana. No, maybe that's like
China.
China.
Yeah.
Made in China?
Yeah.